Can you imagine us sending clothes and sending food over there? And I mean, whatever we can. Who would think that a bunch of nobodies can do something for the Lord? Amen. And can you imagine what we can do? Amen. To be able to get up there and do what we need to do. Okay. All righty. We ready to go? Okay. Tell me when. Well, today, guys, God bless you. How are you? I want to continue in the series that I'm teaching here to you all, and it's a pleasure for me to be able to share this with the YouTube family, the Sold Out BTV family, and to put this on there for other churches, other leaders to be able to grab a hold and use this material. But I think for us to understand this, I asked you guys a question earlier, how leadership works. And what do you know about leadership? And so I just asked you to kind of put that on paper so that you would know how leadership works. Many times we look at leadership and we look at what we do within the leadership, and we understand that we look at a leader, but we say, what does successful people know about leadership? And if you're going to be successful in what you do, then you also need to know what to look about and know about leadership and what it does. And so today, I want to talk about the subject is how leadership works. And so as we go there, I have Tyler kind of going back and forth, helping me to move my notes, because I don't have the ability to be able to use my computer on there yet, but I will. But I put it on there so that y'all can understand how leadership works. And so let me just tell you that leadership is a complex subject. It's a very complex subject, and so when you start to look at the 53 years that I have in my life, I've been studying leadership for probably about 20 years now, since I was 21 years old. And I never understood what leadership was all about, but I wanted leadership, and I wanted to grab it, and I wanted to understand, man, how can I lead? But I understand that leadership is a complex subject. It's difficult, because when you think of a leader, what do you think of a leader? For me, when I think of leadership, I think of a president or somebody that's in a high position, and they're being very successful. But how did that person get there to that position? Because you just can't become the president of the United States and think that you're going to be successful. First of all, you need a team to get you better. Amen? And in that team, also you need great mentorship that be able to help you to get to that position in your life. Amen? And so when we think about leadership, we always think about a leader is always somebody that is still learning. First of all, leadership is not just, you don't just grab leadership and you think you're done with it. That's just the beginning of understanding leadership. But a leader is somebody that is still learning. And so when you look at a leader, you want to ask yourself, is that leader still learning? In other words, is that leader still teachable? And if he's teachable, how is he teachable? And so first of all, you understand that you can learn from anybody. I've had my little grandson teach me and learn just by looking at what he does, and just knowing that we're still not done and still not complete in everything that we do. So I think that the important for us is we need to understand that we're still learning. And then also we need to understand that we are still a teacher. We are a student of what? Of learning. Amen. Learning what? Learning where your subject is at, learning where you're going to be, because not every leader is just a leader. Some people could be a leader in the school districts. Some people can be a leader in the construction business, and there's different types of leaders. But if we all possess the same qualities of leadership, you can turn those leaders in the case of our ministry and what we do, we always study the life of Jesus and how Jesus led and what Jesus did. And so when we study the life of Jesus and what he did and how he led, first of all, he led, his leadership was very short term. So what I mean by that is when he began his ministry, he was 30 years old. And at 32, 33 years old, he went up to be with God. But in the process of that, he dedicated his life to reaching disciples for Christ. And there he reached many other disciples, but 12 of them that stayed with him, and he poured into them. He poured into him what they wanted to know about leadership. And he made sure that those 12 stayed teachable. And he taught them about leadership. He taught them about what it was to live a life for Christ and live a life for his life, or live a life for God, a godly life, and to be able to reach the world and to reproduce. So leadership is a reproduction of yourself. And that's what Jesus did. He pretty much reproduced himself into these 12 disciples, and these 12 disciples reproduced themselves into others, and others into others, and now we're here. And so our main objective, our main goal, our main subject is to reproduce good leadership that would honor God and that would live for the Lord in all that they do. You'll never lose the sight of the truth that leadership starts with influence and it builds from there. And so when you think about what is leadership, everybody influences somebody. Everybody. Anything that we do, everybody is always influencing somebody, whether you influence in a positive way or in a negative way. We all have the ability to influence somebody. Influence starts with passion. And when you're passionate about something, you can influence anybody because you just know. And have you ever seen somebody try to influence somebody and they're passionate about it, and then they don't get their way? A kid does that. They don't get their way, so they throw a temper tantrum until they get their way. That's the way our influence should be when we're influencing other people. Amen. I'm not trying to say don't throw a temper tantrum, but what I'm trying to say is that you are going to influence somebody, whether you influence them in a good way or in a positive way or in a bad way. And so we have to keep in mind that what does that look like when we look at that? It says, does everyone have the potential to be an effective leader? That's we can move up the notes on there, Tyler. Does everyone have the potential to be an effective leader? Yes or no? Yes. Why? Everyone has the potential to lead on some level. Everybody has a potential to lead at some level. Whether you're leading at a high level or you're leading at a low level, you have the potential to lead. And for most of us, sometimes, well, you're never going to be a leader. You're never going to mount up to anything. You're never going to be successful. You're never going to do that because you don't understand. You need a college degree. You need to go here. Yes, that's all good. But I've seen some of the best entrepreneurs go and become very successful at what they do without going to school. Why? Because it's the passion of what they put into it, and so that they could get the learning, amen, experience. And I'm not saying that we don't need to go to school. We need education, but it's how you educate yourself. And some of those guys have read so many good books, and they've applied what they've read. And so this is what Jesus was trying to tell his disciples. Listen, it's not about just leading, but you have to apply what you learn. And so it's important for us, does everyone have the potential to lead, to be an effective leader? The answer is what? Yes. Yes, right? And so why is that important for us to lead? Leadership is the beginning. Leaders that don't start out, they're great. You're never, just because you start off, that you're going to be a great leader. It's going to take a little bit at a time, one step at a time. But the more that you progress, the more that you practice it, the more that you get better at it. Amen? And that's the importance of what it is. Amen? We look at LeBron James. He just has the scoring title. He's the #1 scorer in the league history. But it didn't start for him a year. It started 21 years ago. He's 22 years in the league. He finally made it to be the #1 player in the whole world. Amen? That's pretty cool. Where he surpasses everybody, and there is there's an argument about who's the GOAT. Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron? Is it this? Is it that? And so but there would never been an argument if he didn't start back then. And yes, the longevity of him has gone a long way. And so we have to understand that there's three main components that comes into play. Three main components. The first one is we have to know that there's an environment. An environment of incarnation of leadership. That's the importance. An environment of incarnation of leadership. What does that mean? And what does a growth environment look like? When you look at others, what is the incarnation? I want to get up and move around, but when there's an incarnation of leadership, what does that mean? That if you are going to get yourself in a conducive environment of growth, then that conducive environment of growth, you have to understand that when you get yourself in that position, you have to see and know about certain things. And so wherever you go, if you're going to apply for a job and you're going to go, you got to be observed. You have to be a person that observes things, but you also have to know what it looks like. What does a growth environment look like? Here's 10 things that we're going to look at. First of all, others are ahead of me. So when you come into a position, you're going to have to see, is there others people that are ahead of me? Others people that are ahead of you, and what? It's like going into elementary school, that you start off with pre-K, kinder, first, second, third, and you always see that there's a school that in order for you to get to the next level, you got to pass the test. You got to go through the school year to get to the first grade. You got to go to the school year to get to second. Same thing when you go to high school, middle school and high school. But number one, others are ahead of me. That's the importance of understanding that others are ahead of you. And so it's important that we understand this, that leadership is more caught than taught. So I can teach you all about leadership, but it's not until you catch it. Jesus said the same thing to his disciples. He took his disciples, and what did he do? He was teaching them and he was going, but it wasn't until Jesus said, you got to catch the vision to be able to go. Once you catch the vision, it's important. I'll tell you, there's nothing that's going to hold you back, because now you're catching the vision. So leadership is more caught than taught. If you grew up in the leadership environment, you probably recognize your own leadership ability early. If that's how you were, if like I'll take an example. If you take Tim and Lauren, and you take my kids and Paul, you take them, and you understand that their leadership skills are they're a little bit above everybody else. Why? Because they've been seeing Mom and I, they've been seeing us lead people and lead in the leadership position, but they've also seen our mistakes. We've made some mistakes in our leadership. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes. You're going to make some pretty messed up mistakes. And so the earlier and the more that you stay in leadership, the more that you stay around leaders that are going to be able to teach, right? Then what's going to happen is that you're eventually going to start to operate. In the trucking industry, they said, do it till it becomes secondhand. And so what that means is that you're going to drive until you understand, okay, I'm going to go to the lane and I'm going to turn this way. And it's just going to become an automatic thing. That's why I think it's important for us to understand, if you're going to be if you're going to be in a positive leadership environment now, you need to have leadership qualities. And they need to encourage you. And you need to know what to look at leadership qualities that need to encourage you. But you must be starting. The outcome, or are starting to know what it is. The right environment always makes a learning easier. If we put ourselves in a leadership position, guess what? If you start to act like a leader, then all of a sudden you're going to start to catch that. But you're in a conducive environment of growth. And when you start to be in a conducive environment of growth, I'll tell you what happens is that a lot of the horse plane, it doesn't stop. It stops. You start to look at the way you do things and say, man, I'm just in a different mindset and a different role as what I'm doing. And so that's the importance of understanding the right environment. The right environment always makes learning easier, doesn't it? I always say this in the home. Hey, watch, we can have 130 girls in a home, 100 men and 30 girls in the home. But do they want to develop in their leadership skills? I pray that they do. And it would be easier because I think the more people catch it, then we could take the world for Jesus. But why didn't Jesus have 100 men or over under him? He only had 12. Because he separated, right? He separated the goats, the bean from the tortilla, the rubber from the road. He separated that. And so I think it's important we understand that not everybody is going to want to be in a conducive environment, in a conducive environment for growth. So we must understand that as we go, if you're not a leader, if you're not in a leadership environment now, and you never spent time in one, then you're not going to know what it looks like. You may have difficulty knowing what it means to lead. You think about it. If you understand where you're at, and you say, man, I'm not in a leadership position role, I'm not in a position to lead, that's because you've never been in that role and you need to get in there. So my goal is to get you guys into a leadership position or a leadership place where you can have a conducive where leadership skills can grow. I don't believe that you don't always want to be a follower. There's going to be times where you're going to have to lead. And so in order for me to want to teach you, I have to understand that if I don't teach you, somebody else is going to teach you. And so my role is to be able to teach you and to become a leader, but to also show you what leadership looks like and what successful leadership does and what they know about leadership. You're going to look at, then you must understand that there's a positive leadership environment to help you lead. And that positive that positive leadership role, and it helps you lead. You got to look at the impossibility of learning leadership without a conducive environment, and it is difficult. And your development will show. Your development will show. What you do is going to show. Amen. And so it's important that, am I in an environment, number one, to say that others are ahead of me? You can answer that question yes or no. But you also have to look at what does the growth environment look like? The second thing is that am I continually challenged? I hope that you guys are continually challenged. We want to continually challenge. You look at the stuff that we're doing in the home. We don't just do the stuff that we do in the home just to do them. There's a process of growth for your life, but we understand that we want to continually challenge you. We also look at, is my focus forward? Sometimes this happens a lot in the home. You start to come in the home, you make a decision, you're growing, you're moving forward, you're doing the things that you need to do, and then all of a sudden you lose focus. Your focus is not forward. And you start to, and that's easy for you and I to have. But if you put somebody that's already been in a conducive growth of leadership, a leadership growth position, and they've been seeing that, then they know that that leader, or whoever that leader is, that they stay focused and moving forward. And that's important that we understand that. The fourth thing is the atmosphere affirming. Is there a positive atmosphere? Is there chaos in there? If there's chaos, I don't want to be. No one wants to be in chaos. If you go out to the streets and you go out to, the Haven, or you go out to this place, man, and not to down that, but there is some stuff that goes on in that place and the facilities that is not good. Outside of it, there's chaos. If you look at the trash, you look at all the stuff, it's just not, I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in that kind of environment. And so that's why you're in a place here. And so you start to look at, is the atmosphere affirming for me? Number 5, am I often out of my comfort zone? How many feel sometimes that you're out of your comfort zone? right? And how do you feel? Man, when you're out of your comfort zone, does that make you uncomfortable? Yes, but that's what leadership does. It puts you in a comfort zone where you just like, you feel like, I'm not, man, I don't feel comfortable. I just don't feel comfortable here. And a lot of people, what happens to them as they start to get uncomfortable and say, I don't belong here. Because why? Because they've never been in a growth environment, and that same old you, God doesn't want you to be the same old you. So he puts you and you feel like you don't belong there. And you're often out of my comfort zone. And God doesn't want you in your comfort zone, because that's where the devil comes into play. And so that growth, God causes that comfort zone that you feel out of it, because that's God working on the inside. And so we just have to understand that. Sometimes we don't understand how God is working, and we feel like, I just don't belong here. God is speaking to me, and it's time for me to go. That's a lie from the pits of hell. God is never going to put you in a place and then tell you that you don't belong there. Not the way God does. God puts you in a place, and he gets you out of your comfort zone. So he causes you to look for those things. He causes you to get up. Number 6, wake up excited. How do you wake up in the morning? Do you wake up in the morning to say, God, today is a day for growth for me? Yeah, right. No. But that's the thing that you must understand, is that if you're going to be a person that is in a growth environment, and what it looks like, you got to wake up excited. Wake up excited for what? I've lost everything. I can't. I'm never going to replace it. You're stuck on the comfort zone, and God is trying to get you out of the comfort zone, because he wants to get you excited for what he's doing inside of you. And so that's the importance. Number 7, failure is not my enemy. I always say, if you're going to fail forward. Do you have it all together? Do we have it all together? No, but if we look at failure and we just say, God, I failed and I'm never going to get back up, I'm done. And you stay there, and what happens when you sit there, then depression comes in, oppression comes in, stress comes in. You're just there, and you're never going to get out of the position that you're at. But you have to understand that when you look at those things, failure is not my enemy. Somebody say that with me. Failure is not my enemy. Number 8, others are growing. Are others growing? And the environment you look at, I look at these things, I say, man, our homes aren't this, but I see others, and I see the growth in their lives. Like, for example, when I use Damien right now, it might have been negative to somebody, but I saw Damien, I said, man, that's exactly what I see Damien and the growth is coming to him. Damien is sticking it out. Whether he doesn't, or he doesn't want to be here, or he doesn't, but he's learning how to be patient, and he's sticking it out. Can I hear an amen? Let's give the Lord a hand clap for that. Others are growing. The number 9, people desire change. Do you desire change? Yes. Then if you desire change, then change is good for you, because what it does for you, it helps you to grow, but it also helps you. Like, if I'm desiring change is not going to happen overnight, guys. I always say that Rome was not built in one day. It was built in days, but it wasn't built in one day. You are not going to be built in one day. Oh, it'd be a blessing. Hey, Sarah, you're going to grow, and tomorrow you're going to have leadership skills. You're going to have all these things bestowed upon you, and you're just going to be. That's not the way God works. He can. But God allows you, as a journey that you're traveling in, and that you're going to meet Jesus, there's a conducive growth environment within you. So we have to because people have a desire to change. I hope that you do. I hope that you have a desire to change. Number 10, growth is modeled and expected. The disciples, Jesus put growth, but Jesus, what did he do? He modeled. He modeled, and then he expected. Come on, right? Jesus taught, but then he expected the catching to grab. There's a significance in when Jesus goes and he goes and he reaches Peter and the disciples that were fishing. They had come in and they hadn't caught anything. And Jesus said, put out again. And he put the nets out. And then he came back in full, overflowing. There was a model that was there that Jesus said, if you follow me, then in the process of that, you're going to catch what I'm trying to give you. And so there's a significance of exchanges there. We look at that just a story, but the significance that changes there is that Jesus was trying to teach them. First lesson was he was trying to teach them that if you follow Christ, you are going to catch what God has for. That's a great example of leadership. Leadership is if you follow the leader, then you're going to catch what that leader has to give. Come on. You're going to catch that. But you got to follow somebody in order for you to catch that. And hopefully that leadership or that leader has a desire to change and has a desire to grow. And it is a place for growth. The second thing that we look at is exposure. Exposure, what is an exposure? What is exposure? Exposure is an inspirational or inspiration for leadership. When you begin to expose, or you begin to fall in a place that you're exposed, you get exposed to it, then you say, I want to be like that. I want a desire to be able to teach like that. I want to be able to learn those things so that I can teach others. And believe it or not, you're going to teach somebody, because when you're leadership, when you get exposed to that, you get exposed to that. If you want to look at the, if you put yourself in, I remember when I started working at the golf course. The reason I was working at the golf course is because I got caught. I got caught stealing cars, and they gave me community service. And so I was doing community service, but I got exposed to something that I had never thought. First of all, nobody in my family ever played golf. But I got exposed to it. And what happened was that I got exposed to that. I caught something. I wanted it. So I worked hard. And guess what happened? They hired me on. And because they hired me on, now I was able to get exposed to this. There's something that changed about me when I worked at the golf course as a young kid. I was exposed and I was inspired for leadership. I wanted to do that. I was a golf cart guy. Putting in the golf carts. And then I got inspired. I wanted to be the starter. And the starter was just, taking names and putting people into groups and pretty much running the golf course on the outside. And I got that position. I was able to do those things, and it was able to help me out. But exposure of leadership, one of the things, if we find most inspiring is exposure to a great leaders. First of all, you have to love to hear what great leaders speak, how they speak. I like to listen to, MLK. I just love to listen to his just speak, the way he speaks, or the way he spoke. But I also love to listen to John Maxwell. John Maxwell is a great mentor. I love to listen to my pastor. My pastor, when he speaks, I just listen and hear what he has to say. It's important that I remain in that environment of growth. And I get fired up by watching them lead. I used to get fired up under my pastor, man. I would love to see my pastor lead. And my pastor could do nothing wrong in my eyes. But I protected my pastor. To this day. He was my pastor, and he was a leader that God chose for my life. So I was able to learn from him. And so I thank God, because I get fired up to hear them speak. I get fired up when I hear Maxwell speak, and I get fired up when I hear MLK speak, because it inspires me. There's an inspiration that exchanges, and it exposes me to wanting to be a different person. And so it's important that we look at for what inspirational people do, and how we get along and what we go for. Amen? Number one, whom do you admire as leaders? Who do you admire? Who do you look up to? What do you do? Who do you admire? Number two, do you plan to go hear someone you admire speak? Do you plan? Who do you admire? Who do you listen to? Man, who do you want to go there, right? What about taking a trip to a presidential library or a museum? Just listening to people. I think we should do that. I think maybe we should take a small little trip and just go to the presidential library, I don't know, or somewhere where we can just hear what they speak, or a museum, and what the early ancestors did and how they led. And what about making an appointment just to sit down and interview an impactful leader? Who do you know that you could sit down and just grab a hold of that? Right? And so John Maxwell says that if he wants to load somebody, he'll call him and say, hey, for $100, I'll take you out to lunch. And during the process of that, understand what that leader is. Lady goes out and wants to speak to a leader, and she finds out what the leader wants and what he likes. And just by her taking this leader Coke, Diet Coke, because that's what he liked to drink, Diet Coke, she got an extra 30 minutes or an hour speaking to him, to being able to listen to interview him about what leadership and how he was an impactful leader. What happens is that you get inspired. Who inspires you? What inspires you? You have to get inspired by someone. Number three, equipping. You have to get equipped. How do I get equipped? How can I get equipped? If I'm going to get anywhere, how can I get equipped? And equipment is intention for leadership. The only reason that you are getting equipped is because you have a desire to be a leader. That's the only reason I went to school, and that I did what I needed to do, because I wanted to equip myself to be inspired to be a leader. I wanted to be a better leader for you, for the people around me, for my family, for my wife, for my parents, for my work environment. I wanted to be able to create those conducive environments for people to say, man, there's growth going on, and I want to be able to teach that. So I was equipping myself, but I became intention for leadership. I became intentional with my leadership skills. Why? Because leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. Well, it can be learned. Leadership is influence, and it can be learned. We can learn leadership if we just become and we know how to influence others. Can I hear it? Amen. Amen. Not only do we have, but you can learn to connect with people. When you connect with people, you start to learn, and you start to connect with the people that you learn with. And you can learn to communicate. Some of us are horrible at communicating. Yeah. Right? But we can learn to communicate if we get better at what we do. But also, not learning only to communicate, you can also learn to plan and strategize. Right now, I'm talking to you about going to Mexico. But going to Mexico is not just something that we just thought of today. We've been strategizing, we've been planning, and we've been thinking. All we got to know is we just got to hit the ground, and God is going to lead us. And then we got to, once we hit the ground, then we understand, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. We develop a plan of what we're going, strategy. Then you can learn how to get together, how to get people to work together. We use, certain things that we do with, but we all work together. Last night was a beautiful thing of everybody working together. I thank y'all for that. You made our night good. And so it's important that we also get together, and we also know we have to learn how to get people to work together. But you can learn to inspire and motivate others. When people, I'll tell you, one of the best things that we look at the food bank. You come to the food bank, and it's like, oh my God, it's just a wild-oiled machine. What happens behind closed doors happens behind closed doors, but when you're out there, you're working together, doing it. What a blessing it is for that to take place. Amen? Come on, just give the Lord a hand clap for you guys. Amen? And most leadership skills can be taught to people. People can be equipped to lead. What I want to do to you and inspire you to do is I want to equip you to be leaders, whether you're leading at home, whether you're leading in the home, or you're leading at a job site, or you're leading somewhere, that your leadership qualities are going to shine before everybody. Can I hear an amen? So when I look at that, okay, when I look at that, I say, what can I do? What is your plan for leadership growth? Does anybody have a plan for leadership growth? Because you should understand that your plan for leadership growth, for number one, if you don't have a plan, the odds are what? The odds are growing against you as a leader. Have you seen somebody just don't have a plan? Like, I don't have no plan, right? You're just there, depressed, not knowing and understanding. But when you start to have a plan, you start to grow as a leader. And so if you don't have a plan, then guess what? The odds are you're probably not growing as a leader. Number two, get some goals and develop personal strategy to growth in this coming year. If you don't have a plan, you've got to start with goals. And we'll talk about that in another class of what it is to have goals to be able to get there. Whenever I want to send out churches, I don't just go and send out churches. I go and I put them on my board and I start praying for them. If I'm going to build a building, I'm going to build whatever, I always put it on paper before it goes, and I start praying for it. I start to build a house for my wife. It didn't start there. I had the plans in there. Even though those plans that I had weren't the plans that God had for me, God chose other plans for me, but I still prayed for plans to build a house. And guess what happened? We're living in the house today. Number three, and break the plan into a daily and weekly discipline. How am I going to grow daily? How am I going to grow weekly? And how am I going to grow monthly? And how am I going to grow in the year? How that's important. How can you better if you're at the bottom? How can you be a leader if you're at the bottom? You got to start from the bottom. Leadership doesn't start at the top, it starts at the bottom. There's some people, they manipulate their way to get to the top. And guess what? They never started at the bottom. So when the ladder's pulled, guess what happens? They fall. Why? Because everybody wants to go to the top without starting at the bottom. And so here are some things that you get there. The answers to that is the number one. Leadership is influence. Say it with me. Leadership is influence. Number two, influencing others is a choice. If you decide that if you can influence others and manipulate them, or you can influence others in a positive way. That's the importance. We see people that they start to influencing others, and it's a choice, and they're not living that lifestyle at home. Listen to me. You cannot live an ungodly lifestyle at home and then turn around and try to live a godly lifestyle in public. Doesn't work. Sooner or later, your results are going to show, and sooner or later, that's going to catch up to you. Number three, our influence is not equal in all areas. Not equal in all areas. We have to learn how we're going to influence others. Amen? I can't, let me tell you just something. Who is it better if you say, Pastor, can you influence my brother or my sister? Can you help them? Yeah, I can help them. But who's going to help them more than me? You. Why? Because they've seen you. And they see your growth. And they see what's happening. And once you start helping them, they say, man, I want to learn from whoever taught you. You caught something, and all of a sudden you start to change your mindset. Number 4, with influence comes responsibilities. There's a famous word Damon used this morning. What did you do, Damon? Damon this morning, he used his responsibility. He goes, it's not my responsibility, but I'm going to go get it anyway. Influence. He says, man, I have responsibilities. Number 5, people of positive influence add value to others. Guess what Damien did this morning? I'm picking on Damien this morning. Guess what Damien did this morning? He came and he brought the Bible or the notebook to his brother, and he added value. I bet you his brother felt like a king. Served. If he didn't, he needs to thank him. Why? Because Damien added value to them. Oh, you're okay. I'm going to stay. Okay. You're good. And so people of positive influence add value to others. Are you adding value to others? If you're not, then you need to look at where you can add value to others, because I think that's the importance of what you can do for that. What is the ultimate purpose of leadership? What is the ultimate purpose of leadership? What's the ultimate purpose of leadership? How can you grow? What's the ultimate purpose of leadership? First and foremost, leadership is about adding value to people. If you want to be successful as a leader, you need to make others better. What does that say in that back sign over there? It used to be back there, but it said, so that believers, we're the best, just get better. What are we saying? That we want to make you better. And everything that you do, we want to make you better. I think that that's important. So what is the ultimate purpose of leadership? First, we make others, foremost, add value to others, but we want others to get better. If you want to be a successful leader, you need to make others better. You need to make them remove self-imposed limitations and encourage them to reach their potential. So we all have, how many have limitations? Yes, you do. Some of us, I can't do this, Pastor. I can't do this. I can't do this. Our job as a leader, my job as a leader, is to remove those limitations and to get you to believe that you can take the world for Jesus. That you can become a disciple of Christ, and that you too can do the same thing that those disciples were doing. That you too can go into places, and those places can be turned around by the Spirit of God inside of you. And I want to get you to believe that. And so I think that's important, that if I understand those things, then my role as a leader, my responsibility is a big thing. And these are the things that we can do if we just practice the following. What is the ultimate purpose of leadership? Number 1, if you want to make others and you want to add value to others, and number 1, you have to listen to their story and ask questions. I often sit down and I talk to people about their family. I ask questions. How's your family doing? Have you talked to them? I just listen to the story. Number 1, listen to their story and ask questions. Number 2, make their agendas your priority. Oh, Pastor, I can't talk to Pastor because Pastor doesn't have time. But that's not necessarily true. We could sit down and have a long length of conversation, and man, your agenda becomes our priority. As a leader in the home or as a leader in the environment, you start making their agendas your priority. They start to cry and they start to speak. Number 3, you got to believe in them. I believe that we could have the homes full if we start to believe in people. And sometimes some people come in with some crazy stuff. But it's not your responsibility to judge that. It's your responsibility to believe in them. I always say that before you believe in yourself, I was believing for you. Trust in the Lord. That's why we never give up on anybody. Number 4, we got to discuss ways to accomplish their vision and plans and fit them. What's going to fit for you in this home? What's going to help you in this place? What are you going to do to get in a different level? What's going to take place? How are you going to do this? And then number 5, help them until the vision is accomplished. That's what Jesus did. Jesus helped his disciples until the vision was accomplished. And even after that, they caught the vision and they still made mistakes. But Jesus came back to restore them. He believed in them. He knew that that was going to be the bunch that was going to take the world and conquer the world for his honor and for his glory. And we're still doing it up to this day. I'm going to stop there. We'll continue in this subject on next week. I want to thank everybody for coming, for being here, everybody for allowing me to be able to share with you on what leadership is all about. I hope that you got something. God bless you. Thank you so much. You turn it off now. Hold on. Oh, you're good. You're good.